Hi, today I'm going to be doing my informational speech, and these are my audience members. My friend Kristen, her sister Brittany, and my mom. So now we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa Dillard, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Britain and the European Union. So the world may be changing before any of us actually know it, particularly as Americans, because this is a topic we don't hear a lot about on the news. But Britain is actually thinking about leaving the European Union, which is something that's never been done before. Today we're going to ask the question of, will this be a potential harm to the British economy, and should they actually leave? The European Union has been suffering from an ongoing debt crisis. It's the debt crisis of 2008. I think all of us remember it very well. It's affected almost everyone in the entire on the globe, particularly college students in America, which I know there are 2 of them in the audience today, and particularly the European Union, which I know personally for me, before researching this topic, I did not think that the European Union was as affected as it was by the debt crisis. It's improved since 2008, just like America has improved slightly, but measures still need to be made in order to fully restore both Britain and the European Union, and these measures are kind of what's becoming a conflicting viewpoint between the 2. One of the main reasons is because the crisis has made it very difficult for many European Union countries to refinance their debt without the help of a third party. I don't know if you've heard about Germany, but during the Greece fallout, Germany was the country that was the third party to bail out Greece. And Germany has done that a few times, and people are becoming worried because they don't want to have to rely on one small European Union country, although Germany is doing very well for itself, to have to refinance all of these countries that are in debt. Particularly, not Poland, it is Spain, Italy, Ireland, and Portugal, which are the main ones. And with that, the European Union is slowly looking at other countries that can become a third party to refinance the EU's countries' debts. Because of this, Britain's become a little leery. They have an increasing debt to GDP ratio, and one of the reasons they're looking at leaving the EU is because this option is more plausible to help them prevent their ratio becoming higher and further affecting the British economy itself, particularly because the EU is heavily looking at Britain to help refinance the debt of a number of countries. Because even though Britain for itself isn't doing very well, in the comparison of a number of EU countries, it is doing very well, and it could use its economic pull to help bail these countries out. But it couldn't necessarily go very well, even though it is a little hypothetical. Leaving the EU would severely diminish Britain's influence on Europe, and it would also isolate the country, similar to that way of Norway or Switzerland. Switzerland has its banking sector, and Norway is known for its oil sector, which are usually what hold those countries together. But these things aren't things that Britain necessarily has, and the freedom that it could receive from the EU wouldn't make their sectors any of their sectors strong enough to help support their country in the way that Norway and Switzerland are supported. So, as we previously discussed, Britain's not doing very well economically for Britain's standards, and the European Union isn't doing very good. So, there is a lot of conflict in this area, potentially because there are a number of people that want to join the European Union. Croatia just joined in July of 2013, and with more countries wanting to join, that's more pull on the euro, and it's more pull on more things, and Britain's already kind of not necessarily in the Schengen area of the EU, which is the area where you can travel across the EU without needing a passport, or you needing, like if you're an American, you need a visa. But it allows you to freely travel across a certain number of countries, and there are a certain number of rules and regulations within that area, and Britain chose to opt out of being a part of it. So it's already isolated enough without having those other stresses. Because this is such a new thing, it is fairly improbable to know exactly what will happen, but it is possible to look at the options and social problems that could result from their decision. The main social problem would be Britain's isolation in trades, particularly from the EU and the United States, because the United States trades with both Britain and the EU, which generally could be tied together but aren't, and this could do more harm than good in their self-preventative measure ideas. If Britain were to leave the Union, it would be a detriment to the other countries dependent on the EU. So the United States wouldn't fare from either, because they couldn't just depend solely on Britain for the things that they need. This would also be to the detriment of other countries in the EU, because if Britain leaves the European Union, they would then essentially help the European Union to crumble, because they are very dependent on each other, and those countries need a country like Britain to help support them. There are proponents and opponents, or people that are for and against this movement. The proponents of this are generally the Conservative Party members or conservative citizens of the UK, one of which is Ed Miliband, who is a very vocal political party member of the Conservative Party. They believe that Britain should leave the European Union as it would help to restore the British economy. And members of the Labour Party believe that Britain should stay in the EU and use its economic leverage to help the Union and its countries, similar to what Germany is currently doing. Members of the Labour Party or the Liberal Party are generally the more vocal members of that portion of, or that idea. And political representatives of Croatia, the newest member of the EU, have been very, very vocal on what they think Britain should do and what they believe should be done. David Cameron, who is the current Prime Minister of the UK, is also leaning towards this idea because he is very for trade with the EU and a relationship with the EU and the United States. Articles that I use to help me research this issue are Pilgrims to the Eurozone, How Far, How Fast, by Evgen Kochenida from the Czech Republic. He is an economist, and he really highlights the people who move about the Eurozone and how that affects both the Euro and transport and trade. And then Brian Wheeler and Lawrence Peters, UK and the EU Better Off Out or In, which is a BBC article which highlights the pros and cons of the UK staying in or out of the EU. And Michael C. Williams' Britain's Self-Defeating Referendum, which is a very interesting article from the New York Times, which has more of an American perspective. So I hope that this helps you understand more about the EU and take a little bit away and think about how it can affect both the United States and how it can affect the world that we're living in, because it is a very new topic, and I hope that you enjoyed the speech today. Thank you very much.